How did you meet Victor? In your opinion, what caused you to think there will be a good relationship and in the future cause you to join forces for in a company?
We were colleagues, of course, that is a lot more interested in how technology could be utilized to do our jobs. The other people either didn't have the same sort of interest in that, or they just like too old to really want to even explore that type of stuff. I like you as a person as well. That's a pretty important factor.
Basically, the reason why I believe we created this relationship, I've started companies before. I did have partners. After a couple of failed partnerships, I was very suspicious of creating companies or creating any projects with somebody else. I came to realize that I should do things all by myself. I should never have a partner again. I was already set on my ways. I worked for our previous company for the most part because I wanted to see how the consulting world worked, because I never intended to be an employee for a long time. I don't have the personality. I like to start new things. I like to create new companies. I like to take some calculated risks. But because I had this need to transition into a different industry, the only path that I saw possible was to join a company. One of the things that I really took as very early on is that most people there, although they are very smart, they are very dedicated, they really didn't share my passion for creating new stuff. They would just kind of follow instructions and they will follow policy. And for the most part, I was just trying to make new stuff and break things all the time until I was told by management that I should stop doing that. And I remember distinctly that one of these meetings or events that we went to together, we were just talking, like chatting. And I realized that you shared the same passion for just trying to do things in a new, more efficient, more effective, more intelligent way. And you were constantly trying to push boundaries. That's where I realized, you know what, this guy is a good guy and we should hang out more, right? Because you share the same, I won't even say you share the same passion, you share the same mechanics, right? Your brain just functions differently. And everybody else, I didn't really feel anything like that. While I enjoyed their company and I was okay working with them for a while, I could never see any of those people creating and helping me create something new. And in terms of the technology, I'm a tech lover and I like to think of myself as pretty tech savvy for a doctor and for an advisor. I don't think I'm nowhere near where I should be considering the new technology revolution. And this is another thing that I saw in you. I say, you know what, this guy is not only super smart, he also has the mechanism that functions a lot like mine. Just try to push boundaries, break things, just to see how things work and then trying to rebuild that thing in a better, more efficient way. I couldn't do it without the technology counterpart. I saw in you a complement to my deficiencies. While I wanted to create those new things, I didn't necessarily know all the paths. And then I believe that you could help me create the next big thing. While we explored conversations together, enjoy the company of each other, and we created a friendship.
Yeah, you were talking about you didn't want to work with another co-founder, for example. For me, it was actually the opposite. I had started a company before. I think that I could fulfill all of the functions at a company. It's just a lot to put on one person's shoulders, the entire company, right? Doing the operations, the business development, managing potential employees, all of that stuff. For me, I had a company, two companies. First one, I wasn't able to get the job done all by myself. As a result, I even created a company that was called Top Co-Founder. I had wanted to find somebody to work with for multiple years. I just couldn't do it. Couldn't find anybody that had the motivation, the skill sets. And I'm sure I could have found some people where you share equity like 10% or something, but I don't think that provides the level of motivation in them as if it would be like a 50-50 split. It's very challenging to find somebody that, or for me, I've got some pretty good results in my life, right? Like I'm very much a perfectionist, like 4.0 GPA in school, CPA exams. I'm not sure there's very many people that outscored me on that. My expectations are extremely high. I haven't found anybody that has really met them. I created a company called Top Co-Founder pretty much to find startups without a technical person on the exec team. And I was going to fulfill that function as like a fractional CTO. And that's the reason I called it Top Co-Founder. I had always actually quite the opposite of your story, which is that I was trying to find a co-founder for the longest time, and I was not able to do so until Profit Leap.
That's awesome. You were trying to find somebody and nobody pretty much filled the criteria that you were looking for. And I was not looking for somebody. Somehow, during our initial conversations and interactions after that, I managed to break my own rule and take you on as a partner because I was convinced that I would never be partners with anybody again, ever again. That's how frustrated I was against having partnerships for multiple years. I was not looking for a partner. And even then, regardless, we ended up building this thing. Let's talk about Profit Leap. My main pain point while working for an advisory company was how blind everybody was trying to drive other people. It's the blind driving the blind. Almost. Why I say that is because the systems that were designed to show transparent data, real-time information, they were built in silos within silos within silos. Many sources of information spread all over the place. Information didn't cross-reference one another. And then even if you were very diligent, you could still miss stuff, be blindsided by some other source of information that you have to spend a lot of time just trying to find what the hell happened with so-and-so, be able to understand what was going on in that particular business. I thought that was a major distraction and wasting a lot of energy and time, otherwise very high-achieving people. And that was not good for anybody. That was not good for the company. That was not good for the advisors that were advising business clients. And that was even worse for all of the clients that were not taking advantage of all of the money and resources that they were putting in that advisory service. That's when I try to break something. I said, this dashboard doesn't work. Your systems to collect and distribute cross-reference data is just a joke. Let's do something about it. I started by building a business plan system that my proposal was to unify all of the business planning for the entire company, and that would impact 600 businesses use that unified method to create their business plans. That was immediately rejected. It would have been better if it was immediately rejected, because that meant they had considered it and they had thought about it and they had a better solution. But no, they just dragged it for 6 months, very poorly responsive. Ultimately, they just failed to even acknowledge that there was a problem in the first place. When you and I started talking about what a joke the dashboard was, I saw in that a common pain point that was not just me, it was you also, and pretty much all of the advisors and all of the clients. I remember a discussion we had saying there is a need, and it's an unfulfilled need of small businesses that are not very tech savvy themselves, not very financial literate. We could fill that gap by creating a product or a service that is designed exactly to build bridges, right, between the leadership of a business and the source of truth, which are the multiple sources of data, in a way that's going to be simple for them, really just see what's going on and then make decisions based on that. The idea of Profit Leap really was born around the lack of data. And then we started discussing about the AI revolution that was taking place while we kind of started discussing about dashboards. And then you mentioned something that I never forget. You said, I want to create a system. I want to create an AI that's going to replace me. Tell your story. How did Profit Leap start from your perspective?
My involvement in what I was creating that led to Profit Leap, it was a culmination of a bunch of skills that I had acquired in the 3 prior years before Profit Leap was started. I had been an analyst. That was the first job I got out of college. I was actually pre-med, but because I didn't want to be a doctor, I ended up being an analyst as my first job out of college. And I got that job because I was also a statistics teaching assistant at University of Miami. The company that hired me knew that I was good with numbers, even though I didn't have the degree for anything related to data. Being an analyst at the first job I ever had, to the last company I was at, there was a lot of stuff that, even though I knew about SQL and databases, how to visualize data, I still had to relearn all of that stuff because it was 10 years in my past. I basically had that analyst position in 2020 for a year. So I took my my knowledge to another level. Simultaneously, I was studying for the CPA exam. And after I passed the CPA exam, where I was training to become a CFO, I learned additional skills from a software development perspective, specifically a program or software called make.com, formerly known as Integromat. I took an entire week to basically become an expert in Integromat. Knowing that kind of took my level of dashboard creation to an entirely new level. Of course, AI came a little bit after that. A year after that, ChatGPT. Actually, I'd been playing around with these GPT models prior to ChatGPT. It was actually called GPT-3. There was a GPT-2. I'd never messed around with GPT-2, but as soon as GPT-3 came out with a company, I think the leader in that space at the time was a company called Jasper. And I had been using that for a lot of things, but it wasn't really that great. As soon as ChatGPT came out with the 3.5 model, I mean, it was a big leap. It was like 10x improvement over Jasper. I immediately could tell that I could incorporate that in addition to my understanding of like Integromat or make.com, which is basically connecting APIs, in addition to my understanding of SQL and building dashboards. After learning all of that stuff, I became a CFO. And then I experienced all the same problems that you had mentioned as well, which is I'm coming to these meetings and they don't have any of the data that I need as a CFO to advise them properly. What I noticed for the vast majority of companies that I worked with is that my job actually became like a chief information officer instead of a CFO. I was helping them get the information that they needed to make the decisions rather than actually helping them make decisions. But it also allowed me to provide more value to them because not only was I helping them collect the appropriate data that they needed to make decisions, but I was also educating them from a CFO perspective why these things are so important. Those were all of basically the skills that I acquired over the prior 3 years. I was also working on, my own sort of side projects to improve the quality of my job as a CFO. The tools that were given to us were insufficient. And so I just recreated everything on my own, primarily through Excel. Facing the same challenges you were, I was frustrated, was told that we needed to use company approved. I remember even specifically a meeting where the entire advisor call was devoted to talking about using company approved Excels. I was known as the Excel guy at the company. So, I was building my own custom cash flow forecasts and they didn't want to see it. Another impetus to start my own company. I, just like you, am not an employee, but I did need that experience. This is the first time that I had experience as an executive. It was a great learning experience, but as soon as I learned everything I needed to learn, it was time to move on and start Profit Leap.
Tell me about something you said. This is where Profit Leap started. You already had an idea of something to do, something different, or founding another company. But to me, Profit Leap was born. We were like on the side, one of these events. We were just, hey, let's talk. Then you told me, I want to build an AI that replaces me. Tell me about that.
The AI, so I felt like I was becoming expert in dashboards. I could build dashboards that very few people in the world could build. It's just a marginal improvement. There's other people and companies that can build dashboards that are great. I might be able to create a better one, but maybe it's only 10% better. When the 3.5 ChatGPT model came out, I immediately thought that these dashboards that I could build, which are better than anything else that I've seen, if I could somehow figure out a way to incorporate AI into this whole thing, then I could basically create an AI advisor. As I was telling you before, I played around with the 3.0 model, knowing that I wasn't really happy with the 3.0 model. But as soon as the 3.5 model came out, I saw that huge gap. And I knew that even the 3.5 model wasn't good enough to build an AI advisor, but the gap between, or the improvement between the 3.0 and 3.5 was so extraordinary. I knew that it was inevitable at some point in the future. Even when the 4.0 model came out, that was a huge leap as well. Maybe not a 10x leap like the 3.5, but a huge leap. This technology was constantly improving. I was very forward looking. I wouldn't been able to create an AI advisor. Even today with the 4.0 model or the 4.0 model, it's significantly better than the previous models, but it's still really not there in my opinion. I think that the next model could be the one where we can actually create a very good AI model. I had to be very forward looking, but I could kind of see the long-term result of what AI was going to do. And if we could incorporate that into the dashboards, then we could build an AI advisor.